Alright, Russia suspends its offensive and switches to the lengthy defense. It has already been confirmed even by Russian forces themselves in several different regions. And because Putin expects to continue this war for several years, which most likely he will fail to do, this definitely made some of his inner circle to be infuriated. And as a result, we now have even more reports that the fights for power in Russia, they have once again resumed. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And as always, we begin with some more cringe material from ridiculous Russian propaganda. And just once again we have this, one of the main propagandists, Olga Skabeyeva, who is saying that look at those Ukrainians. They stole the sacred relics from monasteries, attached this to plastic footballs, and now they're playing table football with the sacrilegious items. What else would you expect from these satanistic Ukrainians, she says. I don't know what she expects from Ukrainians, but I definitely do not expect anything more ridiculous from her. But who knows? Next we have a little bit more news from Russia, infused also with Russian propaganda, and today the Ministry of Defense of Russia, they claimed that do not worry, there will be no second wave of mobilization. And if you remember from my previous video, every single time they say do not worry and there will be no something, it means exactly the opposite. Later they even emphasized once again that do not worry. You will not be sent to those new regions in Ukraine, I mean new Russia, to serve this mobilization. And also, by the way, you know what? Whenever you receive a military summons, you will be notified electronically. So, a little bit behind the scenes story, in Russia we have this web service called Gosuslugi, where you can pay just utilities, do some other government related things, and, for example, be notified if you got summoned into the military. And so obviously one of the first things the Russian men did is that they tried to delete their accounts from this Russian government service. But you know what? The government decided to remove this option to delete your account. And to make it even more ridiculous, in order if you truly want to delete your account, you will have to go up to the government building, show up in person, and then this is how you do it. But obviously, if you do it and whenever they ask you the reason why you do it, you just don't want to be notified that you got summoned into the military, I will not be surprised if the military representatives will be somewhere nearby. But okay, then we have a little bit more ridiculous news, but this time from Belarus, where its President Alexander Lukashenko gave a speech recently, which was mainly about the situation in Ukraine and the relations between the Western countries and Belarus. And among hundreds of other things he mentioned, I specifically highlighted to you three most important/ridiculous. Well, the first one he said is that the war in Ukraine must be over. It must be over thanks to negotiations. But Ukraine will not stop until its owners, America and the West, will not allow them to do it. The second ridiculous thing he mentioned is that Russia was forced to annex Crimea back in 2014. I have no idea how you can force to take somebody's land. It's pretty much the same as saying America was forced to take part of Mexico, for example, or Canada, doesn't matter. And I mean what, you expect no consequences. That's what he thinks for some reason. And the third ridiculous thing he mentioned is that the Western countries collectively, after Russia, they are planning to destroy Belarus. And so yes, if you're from one of these Western countries, specifically if you're from America or Poland, can you please let us know in the comments if you want to invade and terrorize small Belarus? And if you are the normal person, in this case, you are more than welcome in our community, so you can like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. You can also check my second channel, The Russian Dude Clips, where I post under 1-minute summaries every single day. The link will be down below. Alright, just one last quick thing about Belarus before we talk about actually some serious news, including the official failure of one of the Russian goals of this war, special military operation. And so yes, as you can see from this picture from Homel airport, there are Russian S-400 missile systems located on the territory of this air base. And reportedly, they were transported there recently, and after this Lukashenko said that the war must be over and the countries should stop sending their weapons around the world. Which, okay, it kinda counts. He said it after the Russian S-400 missiles arrived in Ukraine. But okay, and now as promised, let's talk about some more serious news. And first of all, according to the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom, even more Ukrainian soldiers finalized their trainings on British equipment, such as, for example, Challenger 2 tanks, and now they'll be arriving to Ukraine along with these combat machines. But well, according to some Russian military expert, it feels like anyone can become a military expert in Russia as long as you support this war, special military operation. So long story short, he released this article that Challengers and especially Leopard 2 tanks are so bad, they're so fragile. Just give 2,000 Russian soldiers a shovel and they'll be able to destroy these tanks with their bare hands. And some people on the internet even went ahead and they created this blueprint where exactly you should attack with the shovel to destroy a Western tank. But okay, next we have the statement from the representative of the Ukrainian Air Force, Yuri Ignat, and he is confirming that Ukraine is using smart bombs called JDAM, which can glide, and their distance is approximately about 50 to 60 miles. And what makes them so crucial for the Ukrainian Air Force is that instead of plane just simply dropping them and letting the gravity do the work, these bombs they activate, they start gliding, and they use the basic GPS navigation, which makes them extremely precise. And so right here, for example, is the video of the consequences of one of such attacks, but YouTube will not allow me to show the full version because there is an explosion, and if you want to see it for yourself, I upload on my Patreon, the link is down below. Alright, next we have a picture from Bucha, where the president of Moldova, Maia Sandu, along with the prime minister of Slovakia, Slovenia and Croatia, have visited this city. The reason for this visit it is because recently it has been an anniversary of the Russian atrocities inside the city, and as one of the things that happened, President Zelensky awarded the Hero City to Bucha recently. And ultimately, we have the statement from the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, who is saying that Finland will join this alliance in the very near future. And so, if you remember, one of the main original goals of Russia in this war was to not let NATO expand. And as you can see right now, Senor Putin, you have now failed. And now it is official. Right, and now let me really quickly talk about the situation in the east of Ukraine, so it makes sense why Russians are suspending their offensive and switching to defensive. But first of all, we have a video from Belgorod, and as you can see, some pretty loud noises have been reported in this city. Next we have a video of a Ukrainian air defense intercepting one of the Russian Shahed drones recently. And then according to the Ukrainian Air Force, in the last 2 days they were able to intercept 9 of Russian drones out of the total of 10. Then we have everyone's favorite report by the Institute for the Study of War, which says that Russians continued their offensive along Kupiansk, Svatove, Kreminna frontline, but still no success at all. But on the other hand, Ukrainians were able to do a successful tank raid on Seversk Soledar frontline, which resulted in complete elimination of the Russian concentration of forces. The entire video is almost 11 minutes long, and you can see Ukrainians using tanks in action, and they're doing this pretty effectively. I'm obviously not able to show the full version right here, but I have it once again on my Patreon. There's still 1 week of free trial and the link is down below. Then we go to Bakhmut itself, where recently Russians intensified their attacks against the center of the city, and they also tried to support this offensive from the flanks, but Ukrainian artillery was able to intercept those advancing Russians to the south and to the north. That is why this whole entire offensive has not been successful. And speaking about Ukrainians inside this city, recently one of the soldiers had a birthday, so happy birthday, Mr. Soldier. And his entire unit found the energy and passion to celebrate it with full of joy. So as you can see, even in the darkest times they found the simplest ways to make people smile. And now just think about the morale of Russian soldiers, who are being sent in waves to attack and not even capture this city. Alright, now let's go a little bit more to the south. In Klishivka, for example, Ukrainians were able to reportedly destroy a Russian ammunition depot. And going even more to the south, to Avdiivka region, Ukrainians were able to destroy a convoy of Russian military vehicles which has been spotted in Vodyane. And ultimately, right here we have the video of Russian soldiers in Soledar, who, to be honest, do not look very happy. And what the guy basically says is that recently they received an order from their military commandment to stop the offensive and switch to defensive. Among the two reasons that he mentions is that first of all Russia was unsuccessfully trying to capture Soledar for the last 7 months, and the reason number two is that they know about the upcoming Ukrainian counteroffensive in the spring. That is why obviously that right now they cannot attack, all they need to do is to defend as much as possible. And to sum it all up, he says is that according to his intelligence, Ukrainians already brought at least 10 Leopard 2 tanks to Soledar, but this information needs confirmation. And yes, you heard it right. The Russian military commandment has ordered Russian forces in Soledar to suspend their offensive and switch to defensive. But according to the Western intelligence and sources, this does not happen just in Soledar. It happens pretty much across the entire eastern front line, except maybe just a couple of places, such as Bakhmut and Avdiivka, where Russians just routinely continue sending their waves after waves after waves after waves after waves of soldiers, just to not let Ukrainians rest and regroup themselves. And so yes, obviously I would say it makes sense, whenever you don't attack, you defend. And that is why Putin wants to turn this war into this lengthy confrontation with the only goal to exhaust Ukraine and make the Western countries to be extremely tired of supporting Ukraine with no results. Because honestly, this is the only thing left for him to do, because most certainly he will not be able to win on the battlefield. And this decision, it did infuriate a lot of people from his inner circle. Some insiders even claim that the fight for power once again resumed within Russian authorities, but we'll talk about this in more details very soon. And so yes, one of the first original confirmations that Putin wants to switch to defensive for a very long time came to us from no one else other than one of his closest people, Dmitry Peskov. And he basically recites his story, is that during this New Year celebration, whenever they were meeting with friends, relatives at the New Year table, one of the guests, he said a toast, and basically what he said, I hope that this war will be over in the near future. And then it was time for Peskov, and his toast was a little bit more doom and gloom. He said that, unfortunately I have to disappoint you, but this thing will continue for ages. And indeed, since the beginning of this war, we don't see much more clear goals of this war from Putin in his statements. What he mainly is talking about is that in case Russia loses, the entire existence of the nation will be questioned. His whole narrative at this very moment can be summarized as following, is that all the Russian people must unite around one strong leader, Obviously Putin. And basically prepare to live with this war. There is going to be a lot of hardships. Some factories must need to even switch producing military related things, such as for example this bread factory in Tomsk, which recently started producing drones. And that just in general people have to get used to this. One of the main triggers which made Putin to switch his narrative was this partial mobilization, which completely failed. They recruited approximately 300,000 people back in September, and this number is only official, which to be honest it is most likely much higher than this. And in this entire winter plus couple of months in September, October, and then March and February basically, they were not able to achieve anything. And so right now, whenever the Western military vehicles and weapons are about to fully arrive into Ukraine, Putin has no other choice other than to announce another mobilization, because otherwise Russia will most certainly lose and do it very quick. According to Kremlin, this war might even potentially become a hybrid war, which in very basic understanding means is that besides Ukraine, Russia will be fighting against NATO and the Western world. And you already noticed it. This narrative seems very familiar, because this is exactly what the Russian authorities have been talking about in the last several months. But nevertheless, speaking about the Ukrainian side, according to Vadim Skibitsky, the absolute maximum, however long Russia can fight in this war, will be 2 years. Definitely no more than that. And the Western countries should continue their support to Ukraine until the victorious end, because sooner or later it will happen, and they cannot stop right before it happens. And so yes, obviously this decision of Putin to extend this war indefinitely, without any clear goals or deadlines, it did infuriate a lot of people inside his inner circle. Because as soon as this war started, a lot of them started losing their influence, and what is even more important to them, their money. Putin didn't even ask a lot of them in the first place whether he should invade Ukraine or not, which already became the very first red flag for the friends of Putin. And as the war keeps going, they are forced to share even more of their wealth and even switch their businesses to produce military-related products to continue fueling this Putin's madness. And I mean, to be honest, they do not have a choice. They either have to clench their teeth and just continue doing this, or they have to become extremely careful walking next to open windows. But obviously everything has an end, even the patience of oligarchs towards Putin. And so this is not already the very first time whenever we hear some reports about the resume of internal fights for power. And so recently already familiar Yevgeny Prigozhin started once again receiving his share of spotlight in the Russian media. He basically started once again undermining the Russian authorities, speaking against the Ministry of Defense of Russia, basically the same things he was doing in the past. But recently there was this story about the small Russian girl who drew a picture which was somehow discrediting the Russian army. Basically she drew it against something, against the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, and it was her father who was arrested for this picture of a small girl. And Prigozhin took this as an opportunity to say that, come on guys, this is nonsense. Which kinda was his opportunity to get closer himself to the people. And even the following posters started appearing in the Russian social media, which basically show that the 2024 will be the year of Prigozhin, and the slogan of his presidential campaign might be, "You should shoot very accurately." So pretty much yes, Russia suspends its offensive, switches to defensive, the Putin's inner circle is extremely unhappy with him, and there are once again resumed fight for power inside Russia, which basically means it does feel like that we're right on the doorstep of some crucial events happening in the very near future. And if you don't want to miss any of them as soon as they start happening, just please once again subscribe to my channel. It only takes one click. And if you want to support my work financially, please consider becoming my channel member, use a PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where is still 1 week of free access. You can find all these links to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you on Tuesday.